Alright, today's math video is creating arguments using data. A senior night video. Mr. Knight! Mr. Knight! That was fun. Okay, so in this lesson you are going to learn how to use data landmarks to make an argument, and this is going to require a little bit of critical thinking, and you can kind of make whatever argument you like. So here's our first question. Which class is smarter? I have test grades from 8 tests from Mr. Knight's class and Mr. Nixon's class. And so the question I would ask you is, which class is smarter? So you have 8 data points for each class. Mr. Knight's class one kid got a 40, one kid got a 50, 80, 80, 90, 90, 90, 95. Mr. Nixon's class, 65, 65, 70, 75, 75, 90, 100, 100. Now, there is not one clear answer for which class is smarter. There could be several ones. So what I want you to do in this video is make an argument, and I'm going to show you that you can make an argument for both. So what we're going to use is data landmarks. A reminder on landmarks. Landmarks are like median, mode, mean, median, mode, biggest, smallest, and then range. So mean is average, mode is most used, median is the middle, you got the biggest to smallest, and then the range. If you need a lesson on those, you can find that video on my YouTube channel. That's not what this is about. I'm going to assume that you already know how to do those. But we are going to use those to make our argument. So I could start out by just making an argument that... Oops, I'm going ahead. I could start out with the argument that Mr. Nixon's class is smarter. Here's why. Mr. Nixon's class is smarter because he had the highest 2 test grades. Boom, right there. So my one argument would be Mr. Nixon's class is smarter because he has the higher grades. And Mr. Knight's highest is only 95. Therefore, Mr. Nixon's class is smarter. Would that be a valid argument? Absolutely it would. I could also make the argument that Mr. Nixon's class is smarter because their lowest grade is higher than my lowest grade. So their lowest is higher than mine, and so I could make that argument. But let's have a rebuttal, which is an argument that says Mr. Knight's class is smarter. So if we look over here and we look at the median, let's check out the median, and let's make an argument for Mr. Knight's class. So if we just did the median, you would see that in Mr. Knight's class we're left with an 80 and a 90. So Mr. K, his median is 85. Mr. Nixon's, though, our 2 middle numbers are 75, so our median is 75. So Mr. Nixon's class median is lower. So if I was making an argument that Mr. Knight's class is smarter, I could make the argument that my median is smarter, therefore my class is smarter. I could use mode as well. Mr. Nixon's class, if you look at Mr. Nixon's median or mode, he has modes of 65, 75, and 100. Actually it's 3 modes, where Mr. Knight has a mode of 90. So therefore you could say, oh, well, he has a mode of 90, so that's the number most scored, so that's better than Mr. Nixon's. Last thing we could do is we could take a look at the mean. You could find the mean or the average of those two. So Mr. Nixon has a higher class average than Mr. Knight. So you could make the case that Mr. Nixon's class is smarter. So we have done the mean, median, mode, biggest, smallest, and we've used all of that for argument's sake. But here's an interesting thing. What if we kind of change some of the numbers? You can kind of make an argument. I'm going to show you right now. And when I say change some of the numbers, I don't mean you literally change the numbers, but watch this. What if I made the argument that if I took these 2 lowest scores out, because those kids are students who are messing around during the test, and we're not even going to count those ones in, and then we found the average. Well, then all of a sudden the average is 87.5, which is much higher. So I could say, oh, well, if I just drop those two lowest scores, then hey, all of a sudden, Mr. Knight's class is smarter. But then if you did the same thing for Mr. Nixon and dropped those two test scores, raise the average up to 85, but guess what? Mr. Knight's class is smarter by that metric if you cross out the lowest two scores. I could even make an argument that goes like this. Well, let's count how many kids scored higher than 80% or 80% or higher. And look, Mr. Knight's class has 6 students who scored 80 or higher. Mr. Nixon's class only has 3 kids who scored 80 plus. Therefore, my class is twice as smart. So you see, there are tons of different ways that you can make arguments. And there really isn't a perfect answer. So what you have to do is you have to use data and landmarks to support your argument. So now this is the part where you do the work. You are going to come up with an argument for me using data landmarks. So the question that you're going to answer is, which football team has been better in the last 10 years? These numbers that you have right here, I was kind enough to write them in order so you don't have to reorder them. But take a look. These are how many wins Nebraska had each year. So this number means Nebraska had 4 wins one year, 6, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 10, 10, 10. And Iowa, 4, 7, 7, 8, 8, 8, 8, 9, 11, and 12. So here is what I want you to do for your assignment. For your assignment, you need to make one argument for each team. Make one argument that Nebraska has had a better last 10 years, and one argument that Iowa has had a better 10 years. So 2 arguments. So one argument that Nebraska's had a better 10 years, one argument that Iowa has had a better 10 years. That's your assignment for tomorrow.